What's up, everyone? Azariel here for a new Yu-Gi-Oh 101 Archetype review video. That's right, a Yu-Gi-Oh 101 Archetype review video, a type of video that I have not done on this channel in so long. And seeing as I haven't done one of these videos in so long, there's a couple things that I want to explain. First off, my throat is still very sore. Yesterday, I took some time and I didn't release any new videos. I didn't make any new videos because I needed to let my throat rest. It's been sore for quite some time. I think I ate something that was too hot, and it kind of burned my throat a little bit, but it's a bit better. So I'm gonna try to get through this video because I don't want to go 2 days without releasing anything. Also, I need to explain, because I haven't done one of these videos in quite some time, how I go about doing my archetype reviews. I don't know if anybody else does archetype reviews. I know there's other people that do card reviews, but I do entire archetype reviews as well. And my methods as to how I go about reviewing the entire archetype may be different than what someone else may do. And even though you may expect a certain way of reviewing, chances are I don't do that. So don't expect me to do my videos based on what you've seen other people do. I take a different approach based on what other people have told me and like the way they've responded to some of my videos in the past. I take a different approach from other people when it comes to reviewing anything Yu-Gi-Oh related, cards, archetypes, etc. And I don't want to. And the reason why I feel like I need to put out this disclaimer, because I don't want people to be expecting one thing and then they end up getting something else, you know. And how I go about doing my videos is that I review the monsters in the archetype. I review what they do. I review the non-monster cards. I give my card recommendations based on my own experiences with the archetype, and I give my overall opinions about the archetype and what I feel it does, in hopes to encourage other people to play the archetype. And that's really my inspiration for doing these archetype reviews, because so many times in Yu-Gi-Oh we see people using the exact same thing, and there's hardly any variety. And you know me, ever since I started doing Yu-Gi-Oh 101 videos, I've spoken on it in the past, my inspiration is to get people to try something else different, add some variety to the game. And I feel like these archetype reviews help, because when you see what the archetype does, and with me and with my experience in the game, I don't want to, toot my own horn, but the way I go about playing the game and the card recommendations that I give, that you may not see on like the uh like the various Yu-Gi-Oh forums that they have out there, the various Yu-Gi-Oh websites. I look at the game from a completely different angle than most people. So a lot of the card recommendations that I make, they're very unique, and you don't really get that from other quote-unquote Yu-Gi tubers, as people like to call us. So with that being said, let's take a look at the monsters, see what they do, and we can go on from there. Now, the artifact monsters are a series of monsters that is an archetype that was introduced in Primal Origin, and they are a series of monsters that are, or at least for now, they are all level and rank 5 light attribute fairy type monsters, and they have a very unique uh, strategy that you rarely see in the game. I mean, you've seen it in cards like Silver Sniper, etc., but they really take it to a whole nother level. And what this archetype strategy is that they set themselves in the spell and trap card zone as spell cards, and when they get destroyed during your opponent's turn, they have effects that activate. And let's take a look at the monsters now to see exactly what they do. So first up, we have Artifact Beagle Talk. Oh, and by the way, if you guys see any type of jump between, you know, certain parts of the video or whatever like that, is because I had paused the video in order to let my throat rest. You know, because like I said, it is hurting. So if you guys notice that, then that's just basically what it is. Alright, so we have Artifact Beagle Talk. Attack 1400, defense 2100. Description: you can set this card from your hand to your spell and trap card zone as a spell card. When this card is set in your spell and trap card zone, when this set card in your spell and trap card zone is destroyed and sent to the graveyard during your opponent's turn, special summon this card. Now this little paragraph right here, I won't be reading this on all of the cards because I feel like it's completely unnecessary considering that I said it, you know, earlier in the video. So just to let you know, but yeah, if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, destroy up to 2 set cards you control. This card, you can only use the effect of Artifact Beagle Talk once per turn. Alright, so moving on to Artifact Chakram. Alright, it said during either player's turn. Oh, this is a this monster's attack is 1900, defense 2000, Artifact Chakram, and it says here during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that will destroy a spell or trap cards you control, you can return 1 set spell and trap card you control to the hand. Special summon this card from your hand. All right, so next up we have Caduceus. And Artifact Caduceus, attack 1600, defense 2400. Description: during your opponent's turn, when an artifact monster is special summoned, draw 1 card. You must control this face-up card to activate and to resolve this effect. You can only control 1 Artifact Caduceus. So up next after Caduceus we have Aegis. Aegis. It's ironic that that Aegis is a woman. You know, Aegis, eggs, ovaries, joke, hee, whatever. Anyway, attack, Artifact Aegis, attack 1200, defense 2500. Description: if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, until the end of this turn, artifact monsters you control cannot be targeted by or be destroyed by card effects. Okay, that's pretty nice. That's nice. And next up we have Artifact Fail Not, and its attack is 2000, defense 600, 1600. Description: if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, you can target 1 artifact monster in your graveyard. Set that target to your spell and trap card zone as a spell card. Okay, so we got some recycling going on there. Next up we have Longinus. We have Artifact Longinus, and its attack is 1700, defense 2300. Description: you can set during your opponent's turn you contribute this card from your hand or field. This turn cards cannot be banished. This is a quick effect. Alright, that's pretty good right there. Next up we have Moral Talk. And its attack is 2100, defense 1400. If this card, card description: if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, you can destroy 1 face-up card your opponent controls. And next up we have, forgive me if I don't give this name right, either it's pronounced Artifact Achilles or Artifact Achilles. I don't really know, but I believe it is pronounced Achilles. Um, but yeah, attack 1500, defense 2200. Uh, Card description: if this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, until the end of this turn, your opponent cannot target artifact monsters you control for an attack. Alright, pretty good. Can't touch this. Next up, we have Artifact Labrys. Attack 2300, defense 1000. Description: when an artifact card is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Kind of got tongue-tied there a little bit. Next up, we have Scythe, which is one of the latest confirmed cards in the archetype. Attack Artifact Scythe, attack 2200, defense 900. Description: if this card is special summoned, they'll go again, tongue-tied again. If this card is special summoned during your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot special summon monsters from their extra deck for the rest of this turn. And last but not least, for the monsters, we have Artifact Durandal, and it's a Fairy Exceed effect monster. Rank 5, attack 2400, defense 2100. Description: 2 level 5 monsters once per turn. During either player's turn, you can activate one of these effects. The first effect: when a monster effect is activated on the field, or when a normal spell or trap card is activated, you can detach one Exceed material from this card. That card's effect becomes destroy one spell trap card your opponent controls. The second, you can detach one Exceed material from this card. Each player shuffles their entire hand into the deck, then each player draws the same number of cards they shuffled. Okay, now for the non-monster cards, non-monster support cards. First up, we have Artifact Movement, which is a quick play spell card, and the description is: target one spell or trap card on the field, destroy that target, and if you do, set one artifact monster directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone as a spell card. If this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card, your opponent skips their next battle phase. Alright, next up we have Artifacts Unleashed. And it also is a quick play spell card. Description: target 2 artifact monsters you control. Immediately after this card resolves, Exceed summon one Exceed monster using those 2 monsters only. Monsters you control cannot attack during the turn you activate this card, except artifact monsters. If this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card, you can reveal one level 5 light monster in your hand, draw 1 card. And last but not least, for the artifact non-monster support cards, we have Theosophy of the Artifacts, and it is a normal trap card. Description: special summon one artifact monster from your deck. You can only activate one Theosophy of the Artifacts per turn. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. If this card in your possession is destroyed by your opponent's card, you can target one card on the field, destroy that target. So that's a quick look at all of the monsters and non-monster cards within the archetype. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and basically speak on the strategy that seems to be with this archetype in the order of the monsters, if you can help it. You know, the order the monsters should be summoned in, or which monsters you should use when and at what time, how much, how many of this card you should add into your main deck. Now, mind you, I'm doing this from the standpoint that you're using a pure uh, build, a pure artifact build. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So off the jump. Alright, so looking back on all the monsters, Moral Talk is good for opening game. Uh, Especially if you're going second. Well, if you're going third or first, what the hell am I saying? Moral Talk is good for opening game because when you set this card and, of course, a card gets destroyed during your opponent's turn, it can take out one of your opponent's monsters because most likely, if your opponent is going second, saying like they're going to have a face-up monster on the field, and this is good, as well as, let me see, Beagle Talk. Snatch his page up real quick. Like, Beagle Talk is good if the majority of if the majority of the cards in your hand are monsters, and you have, say, like one Mystical Space Typhoon, or say like one artifact movement set as well. And during your opponent's turn, you'll be able to, uh, activate Beagle Talk's effect, and you'll be able to get more of your monsters on the field while activating their effects. Man, my throat is sore than a motherfucker right now, I swear. But anyways, just looking at the main attackers for the archetype, we have Artifact Scythe whenever this card gets released, Moral Talk, and then there's Labrys. The reason why I say these are three main attackers because, for one, they're in the main deck, and they have the highest attack of the monsters that are in the main deck. So more than likely you're going to have these cards in attack mode. And not to mention, their effects actually are very helpful. With Moral Talk, it gets rid of one face-up card your opponent controls. Spell, trap, monster. Good. With Labrys, this is good, and for a multitude of reasons, one of which I'll be getting into later into the video. So when I begin to talk about this archetype's weaknesses, is that you don't necessarily have to set it in the spell and trap card zone in order for it to get on the field. You can also special summon the card from your hand, so it does have some versatility there, even if it is just a little bit. And then there's Artifact Scythe, which prevents your opponent from fusion summoning, synchro summoning, exceed summoning from the extra deck, or basically doing any type of summons from the extra deck, which is pretty much self-explanatory. Like, I really don't need to explain how good that is. Especially when you got all these swarm builds out there that literally seem like they get like an unlimited amount of summons from their extra deck. This is something really good to counter all of that if you're using this archetype. Now, I'm going to look at Aegis, and I believe Archelaus as well, and Fail Not. And get these guys up there. Alright, so Aegis is good when you're going up against an opponent that has a very heavy back row, because it can prevent or it can prevent your monsters from being destroyed by your opponent's card effects. or basically any card effect, for that matter. So this is good if you're going up against a very heavy back row. This is a good card to use. As well with Artifact Acolytes, he prevents your opponents from attacking your artifact monsters. So this is good when you're going up against one of those swarm builds that have this ridiculous beatdown strategy. This is good to use against that. Then you have Fail Not, which is a very good tech card, as well as a pretty decent attacker, because this gets the cards that are in your graveyard, or the monster cards that are in your graveyard that you feel like you may need. This gets them back in the position where they can get re-special summon and their effects can be activated again. So this is really good, some really good support. So like when you start diving deeper into the artifacts strategy and how they play. So close these out. Next up, I'm gonna look at Longinus and Chakram. So I believe I did everybody else's. And Durandal. Alright. So looking at Longinus, which is another one of the latest artifact monsters to be confirmed. This one prevents your artifact monsters from being, so like banished. And with it being a quick effect, and you can activate this effect where it can be tributed from the hand, this is a very helpful card for the Archetype, because they have to get destroyed. The artifact monsters, when they get destroyed during your opponent's turn, in order for them to get special summon and activate their effects, they have to be sent to the graveyard first, and then everything else happens. So if you're going up against an opponent that has Macro Cosmos, even though it's limited now, or they're running a build that specializes in banishing your monsters, then this is a fantastic counter for that. It's a great counter for it, because not only do you not need to have this on the field in order to tribute it, you can tribute it from your hand. So there's no there's no, what I'm saying, there's really nothing that's preventing it. Like, you don't have to put this on the field, so there's no worry that you have to have this on the field in order to activate that effect. So that's incredibly helpful for the Archetype. Next up we have Chakram. Now Chakram basically is a lifesaver in many ways. And the reason why I say that is because the artifact monsters work by them being destroyed during your opponent's turn. Now this is the key word, right? Or like the key phrase right there. During your opponent's turn. That's when they have to be destroyed. If your opponent, once your opponent finds out that you're using artifacts, they're going to try to destroy them during your turn. They're going to have their spells or traps set up, or monster effects set up, that they can activate to destroy your spells and traps during your turn, meaning that if they get destroyed, then you won't be able to special summon them and activate their effects. What Chakram does is that when your opponent activates one of these effects, it allows you to return one of those set spell and trap cards you control to the hand, and then you get the special summon Chakram from your hand, of course. So so let's say in an ideal situation, your opponent activates Mystical Space Typhoon, or any card that's like it, that has effects that are very similar to it. This card could save that card from being destroyed, and you can save it for when you need to have that monster be destroyed during your opponent's turn and activate their effects. So this card, not only does it give you some field, you know, so, not only does it put some monsters on your field, but it also saves your monsters from being destroyed during a time where you don't want them to be destroyed. I hope I said that right. You know, like my throat is killing me, so I'm kind of thinking about that, and my mind just wanders off. So forgive me if I sound like a retard. Artifact Durandal. Now this is a very technical Exceed monster that can be a lifesaver in many situations. Okay, for starters, this card has two effects, and with the first one being that anytime an effect is activated, you know, anytime any effect is activated, monster, spell, or trap, monster or normal spell or normal trap card is activated, you know, you can detach one Exceed material and basically change that card's effect to destroy one spell and trap card your opponent controls. Now, you can use this during your opponent's turn. Let's say when they try to activate something that can really benefit them, you can activate that, and with it being a quick effect, you know, you can activate it at any time. So not only can you prevent your opponent from trying to gain whatever advantage that they were trying to gain, but as well as get one of your cards, which more than likely would be a monster, in your spell and trap card zone, get them destroyed, and activate their effects after they get special summoned. Secondly, we all go up against those people that have those good hands. If your opponent seems to have a good hand, you know, and they're working with something nice, and it seems like their hand is really good, you know, you can activate the second effect and you can shuffle their hand back into their deck, and then, of course, they get to draw the same amount of cards that they had. So that's another good effect right there. So again, Artifact Durandal is pretty helpful in tight situations. Now, on to the non-monster cards. Artifact Movement, Unleashed, and Theosophy of the Artifacts. Now these three cards right here, well, first let me get to Artifacts Unleashed. To me, in my opinion, this card is pretty much useless. It is utterly useless. The only use I can really see this card having, or at least from my experience, is when you set it and you feel like your opponent is being so cautious that they're going to destroy it, and like you get some draw power. That's basically it. You don't need this card in order to Exceed summon. You know, it's basically like you're using a spell card to do something that naturally you can already do. You know what I mean? Like, in many ways, like, it would be one thing if it's special summoned, say, like, two monsters from the graveyard, and you had to Exceed summon using those two monsters. Then it would be understandable. But it's basically telling you that you have to target two artifact monsters you control and Exceed summon with those two monsters, as if you couldn't do that already without activating this card. And then on top of that, your monsters you control wouldn't be able to affect except your artifact monsters. So if you're mixing the artifacts with other monsters, so like that's a drawback, because like it could be one attack from winning the game, and your opponent could have one card, that can take out all your monsters. And with you limiting yourself on what you're able to use during that moment, can really determine whether or not you want to lose the game. So, in my opinion, Artifacts Unleashed is literally a very useless card. The only thing you could use this for is to try to bait your opponent to try to, say like get the card destroyed, and you can draw one card from it. you know, draw one card from it. Other than that, it's very useless, extremely useless. Theosophy of Artifacts. This is really good. Now, just like Wild Tornado, just like uh, Security Orb, I call those cards quote unquote double whammies because they pretty much have two effects. Trap cards that have two effects that if you activate them on their own, they have an effect that activates, or if your opponent destroys them, excuse me, then they have effects that activate from that. So you really can't go wrong. If your opponent destroys it, you gain something. If you activate it on your own, then you gain something. So this is basically one of those. Now, this card has a drawback that you cannot conduct your battle phase during the turn you activate this card. Now here's the thing. Why would you activate this card during your turn? Or at least in an ideal situation, why would you activate this card during your turn? It doesn't make any sense to do that. With the artifacts having effects that activate when they're summoned during your opponent's turn, and on top of that, you can activate this card during your opponent's turn so that you cannot conduct your battle phase during the turn you activate this card. You can basically make that drawback null and void because you can't attack during your opponent's turn anyway. It's their turn. So, that's not an issue. Also, of course, you get to target one card on the field. Granted, your opponent destroys this card, and that's pretty helpful in itself. The monsters that I would target with this is Caduceus, which I'm just now remembering. I did not really speak on that card. Like Caduceus, I didn't speak on it, but yeah, summon that if you're looking for draw power, or one of the other high defense artifacts in order to keep your monsters on the field, or keep a monster on the field. So this is good. This is a good card. Next up, we have Artifact Movement, which is basically their version of Mystical Space Typhoon, and it does exactly that. Except on top of the fact that it acts as it's another Mystical Space Typhoon for the Archetype. You get to search out artifact monsters and set them in the spell and trap card zone, thus setting them up to get destroyed during your opponent's turn, and etc., etc. But on top of that, if your opponent destroys this card, they have to skip their battle phase. So obviously you're running 3 of these. Wouldn't make any sense not to. If your opponent destroys it, they can't attack you. And if you use it, then you're searching out other artifacts. So, I mean, it's basically giving you every reason to use it. So let me go back and let me speak on Artifact Caduceus, because this is one of the ones that I actually had something to say, really speak about. One, I don't really feel it's too necessary to run this card. I mean, I ran it, and it doesn't really, I mean, it does have high defense. I'll give it that. But you only need to run 2 of these at max, if that. Because it has a drawback that you can only control 1 per turn, because they want to limit the amount of draw power you get from it. I understand. So with that being said, this card can be clutter, if you run 3 of them. And with them releasing new artifact monsters, it kind of makes this card, like, I wouldn't say null and void, but it kind of pushes it to the side for the other artifact monsters that are coming in, that seem to be more useful. So Caduceus is easily becoming one of the more least used artifact monsters in the archetype. So between Beagle Talk and Moral Talk, obviously you want to run 3 of those. Archelaus and Aegis, You know, 3 of those or 2 of those at the most. Scythe, 3. That's a gimme. Labrys, I would run 2 or 3 of those. That's a good card. Durandal, obviously max out. Well, I run 2 or 3 of those. Uh, with Longinus, run 3 of those. Make sure you run 3 of those. Fail not. This is a helpful card. Get 2 or 3 of those if you are concerned about not being able to get your or not drawing another artifact and you have one in the graveyard. So, you know, just be ready to use a fail not. Chakram is good. You know, run 2 or 3 of those and you basically be straight. So now we're going to talk about the weaknesses of the archetype, because this is something that needs to be said. The archetype itself, you know, it's a very unique motif where they set themselves in the spell and trap card zone and they get destroyed during your opponent's turn. They get special summoned and, you know, they have effects that activate because of that. But here's the thing. If you don't have a good ratio of spells or non-monster cards and monster cards, you can put yourself in a fucked up situation. Because I've had plenty of those because I had too many monsters in the deck. That and or, you know, I was just unlucky. So it's good to have some cards. I mean, of course, there is cards like Durandal that can shuffle cards back into the deck, and you know you can draw the same number that you had. But you know, I'm saying, like, side decking a magical mallet or a reload isn't too bad of an idea. You know, because if you find yourself constantly having that happen to you, you need spells and traps with this archetype. You need spells and traps that can destroy uh, your cards during your turn. I mean, during your opponent's turn, so that you can have their effects activated and they can be on the field. So you have to be cognizant of that. Also, with this archetype, the spell cards that me personally that I use is cards like Double Cyclone, of course Mystical Space Typhoon, and as well as Artifact Movement. There's Chain Whirlwind, which is a really good trap card that activates whenever a card on the field is destroyed. You get to destroy 2 spell and trap cards on the field. Don't really need to elaborate on that. You know, take out 2 of your cards or take out whatever cards seem to be troubling that you're cautious about on your opponent's side. Another weakness that this archetype has is that they can't be banished. They need to get into the graveyard. If your opponent is running a strategy that allows them to be, or I mean, if your opponent runs a deck strategy that banishes your monsters, then you're in trouble, because this archetype, the motif is that they need to they need to be sent to the graveyard. They need to be sent to the graveyard. So if your opponent has a strategy that removes the monsters from play, then you're basically fucked in every sense of the word. Now you can counter this with using cards like Marvelous Descent. I believe that's the name of that card. No, not Malevolous Catastrophe. Yeah. Miraculous Descent, because this can allow you to get your monsters back that are banished. Since they are fairy type, you can use that. As well as if you're using cards like, oh shit, I swear I cannot remember. I have the cards in my build, right here. Cards from the Sky, which banishes 1 fairy type monster in your graveyard, and you get to draw 2 cards but then you're not able to conduct your battle phase during the turn you activate it. And that and or special summon monsters. So you have to be aware of that. Let me take a quick look at this. Make sure I'm not fucking nothing up. Right. Right, okay, so I was right. So you can't special summon nor activate your battle phase. So me, like, I only run one of these just as a backup until Scythe is officially put on like Dueling Network or whatever. I only run two Caduceus. Um, and I only run one cards from the sky because with it preventing me from special summoning, considering that's the primary way to get the artifacts on the field, this can hurt you if used at the improper time. On top of that, you can't attack or activate your battle phase, so that's something else you have to be aware of. So overall, I think the archetype is very self-sufficient because with the weaknesses that it has the cards in place in the archetype, like between Longinus, Chakram, and Labrys, Scythe, Aegis, etc., etc. They have the cards in place to cover their own weaknesses. You know, granted that you have the ratio of monsters to non-monsters, covered. They do a pretty good job at covering their own asses. If you're worried about if you're going up against a build that specializes in banishing your monsters, you have Longinus that can prevent that. If you seem to not be able to pull or draw cards that you may need, and like you're running cards in the sky, and you're not running cards from the sky, then Fail Not can help you recycle the artifacts that you do have in the graveyard that you feel like you can use. With Archelaus, it prevents your opponent from attacking your monsters, your artifact monsters. With Aegis, it prevents your monsters from being destroyed or targeted by card effects. That's really good. Scythe prevents your opponent from special summoning from the extra deck. And with Caduceus, yeah, it limits itself by allowing only one to be on the field at a time, but it does have some high defense, so that's something that you can really use it for if you're not really looking to get any draw power from it. With Beagle Talk, really good for starting the game off. If you went first and you set all your cards in your spell and trap card zone, and then you activate a Mystical Space Typhoon, a Double Cyclone, or what have you, during your opponent's turn, you can get this on the field as well as destroying two more of your monsters that are set in the spell and trap card zone, giving you some field advantage. So, using Beagle Talk's effect with Aegis and Archelaus, you basically covering your ass pretty good, earlier in the game. And Durandal, with Durandal, it's a helpful Exceed monster for the archetype. You can change any monster effect, normal spell or trap, to you have to destroy one of your opponent's spell or trap cards, which is good for you. As well as you're able to shuffle your opponent's hand, you and your opponent's hand. If it seems like your opponent has a good hand, you can have that disturbance strategy like effect. You can use it with that. So overall, yeah, I think the artifacts are pretty damn good. They have a lot that can be used to cover their own asses and their own weaknesses. At the same time, they are, very self-sufficient, and they have a very unique way of going about playing this game. And I think anybody that plays this archetype, like you're really using something very unique and special. But you have to be careful because like many other archetypes, if used them properly, they could really, really leave you in a bad situation. So, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this archetype review of the artifacts. Um, I plan on doing more of these in the future, so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, peace, and I'll see you guys next time.